All right, welcome everybody to the Parsha class, Parshat Re'eh 5781. We're beginning the three Parshiot in Sefer Devarim that have many, many mitzvot. One mitzvah is, of course, tzedakah, and it's in this week's Parsha. And I wanted to mention that this class is sponsored anonymously. I'd like to give a bracha to the donor that this person should live a long, happy, healthy life, continue to be an essential part of our community. The learning of Torah should be a zchut for this person, for everyone joining in, and for all of Klal Yisrael. So the parsha, like I said, just a quick summary, is it's the very beginning, the end of Moshe's introductory remarks, historical remarks, telling the Jewish people where they've been, where they're going, and right away we begin with the mitzvot. Just a moment. Right away we begin with the mitzvot, and there are a number of them, and that's the story in a nutshell. And now let's go into our deep dive into the psukim. Okay, welcome. All right. Hmm, hmm. Just thinking about how I'm going to show you the video because we have a video. There's a video presentation today. All right, I'll show you. I'll turn around the screen. You'll see it. Okay. All right. So we'll figure that out. Let's go right into there. All right. If you want to follow along with the text, one way you can do that is, I guess, okay, or that. All right. That'll work. Just make sure you mute yourself, otherwise it'll be some weird feedback. Perhaps. All right. So let's start off with the mitzvot in the parsha, and there are a number of them. A lot of them have to do with what we can and can't eat. The mitzvahs of kashrut are in this week's parsha, but besides that, also we're going to have quite a long discussion on a seemingly easy question, and the question is: the pasuk says, chapter 12, verse 23, Yud Bet Chaf Gimel, says, "Rak chazak livilti achol hadam, ki hadam hu hanafesh, v'lo tochal hanefesh im habasar." Rak chazak, be very, very careful not to eat blood. Why? The Torah gives you a reason. Because the blood is part of the nefesh, and for some reason that's a bad thing. Right? It doesn't really say why that's a bad thing, but it is the actual life of the animal, and don't eat that. V'lo tochal hanefesh im habasar. Don't eat the nefesh together with meat. Okay, be very, very careful. Don't even think about it. Be very careful. Chazak, be strong. Don't eat blood. So the question that I sent out in the email, by the way, there were only 4 questions that I sent out because I knew we were going to spend some time on these. Usually there's like 6, 7, sometimes 8 questions. 4 questions is all we need today. It'll keep us busy. The question is the mitzvah of not eating blood supposed to be easy or hard? We have, seemingly, it says, be very, very careful about it. Seems to imply that it's very difficult. But for me, I don't know about you, it's not so difficult. I don't want to eat blood. I'm kind of grossed out by it. So what's the be very, very careful all about? So there's actually differences of opinion. So we're going to start off with the Sifrei. It's in Parshat Re'eh, Pitga 24, where it says, Rav Chazak Levilti Achol Adam, be careful not to eat blood. So different opinions in the Midrash itself, by the way. One opinion is Rav Yehuda, who says, Omer Magid Shayu Shtufim Bedam Kodam Matan Torah. This implies that they were steeped in blood before Matan Torah. They were covered in blood. They were eating blood left and right. Everywhere they could find blood, they would be eating blood. So, which implies that it was not an easy mitzvah for the Jewish people, especially then, to do, because they were eating blood all the time. That was like their main diet, the way he seems to say it. They're covered in it, right? It is a good source of protein, iron. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else it provides, but according to Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam, he tells us that the reason that the Jewish people were so much eating blood, well, and by the way, the Ramban mentions this comment of the Rambam as well in his commentary on the Torah. So the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim 346, part 3, verse 46, the chapter 46. I don't know the names of these things, but 346, book 3, section 46. So the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim tells us that it was a common idolatrous custom of Mitzrayim. So now we're beginning to understand. So that's why the Midrash says that they were steeped in it. They were steeped in the avodah zarah of Mitzrayim. Right. So they were because they were from Mitzrayim, because they were influenced by the people there. So what ended up happening is they were influenced to then eat the blood that the non-Jewish people were doing then. So why were they eating blood? So they had this idea, and by the way, there are cultures who still have this idea today. They have this idea that if you eat the blood of something, you incorporate the strength of that thing into you, which fits in, by the way, I don't want to go too much into it, but it fits into the pasuk. Because what does the pasuk say? Ki hadam hu hanefesh. The blood is the nefesh, whatever that means, the spirit, the soul, the strength of whatever you're eating. So we don't want to do that. So that would imply that it was very difficult not to do that, because everybody around us was doing it. It was a way to strengthen yourself. And when I said, by the way, that other cultures still do that today, I've heard, God, Baruch Hashem, I've not experienced this, but I've heard that like warlords and like little like nations like in Africa, when they kill their opposition, they sometimes like eat their heart or something. They want to incorporate that person's strength into themselves. Not Transylvania. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like that there. It's an ancient idea. So, Ki hadam hu hanefesh. Seems, and don't do it because it has that strength, right? So don't try this at home. Another good example of that. Right, exactly. Yeah, we talked about that on Shabbos. Yeah. Enough about demons for now. We'll have to talk more about demons this coming Shabbos. All right, but meanwhile, so it's certainly the way the Rambam has it. It was an act of avodah zarah, and that's why you can't do it, and that's why it's hard. That's why you have to be really strong about it, because everybody's doing it. All the cool kids are, eating blood, right? So you should do it too. And you can't judge them because it's what they do. But we have to be strong and not do that, even though everybody else seems to do that. So that's the Rambam and that's the Midrash. But we're not done with this topic quite yet, because comes along the Gemara, actually the Mishnah, it's in the Gemara in Makot, Daf Chaf Gimel, so page 23b, Makot 23b, and there's a Mishnah, and the Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi Omer, Harehu Omer. It brings this pasuk, quotes this pasuk, Rachazak levilti achol hadam, ki adam hu nefesh. Ma im hadam shenafsho shel adam katza mimenu, haforish mimenu, mekabel schar gezel ve'arayot, shenafsho shel adam mitavel lahen, umachmadatan porish mehen, al achat kama v'kama, sheyizkel l'dorotav v'dorot l'dorotav ad sof kol hadorot. In other words, if doing this mitzvah which a person doesn't even want to do, of staying away from blood, and we stay away from it, and we have to be strong about staying away from it, how much more so will we get reward for doing the mitzvot that of avoiding the negative commandments that we do want to do, the things we are striving for, the things that we're being pulled towards. In other words, the Gemara is implying the exact opposite, that we're not pulled towards blood. We have no interest in blood, and still we get this huge, huge reward, all the reward that all the mitzvot give us. And it says, Doratav, your generation gets rewarded by you doing the mitzvot. Doratav, the generations of your generations, at Sov Kol Hador, until the end of time, you're going to be rewarded so much by staying away from blood. How much more so should you be rewarded for staying away from those mitzvot, those averot that we want to do? So this is the exact opposite opinion, right? We were saying that we have a lot of interest in blood. Here comes the Mishnah and says, "No, we don't want to eat blood at all." Yeah, and in fact, imagine all the reward we get for the mitzvot of the things we do want to do, and we don't, and we stay away from. If we're staying away from blood, and we get reward for that, which is an easy thing to do. So make up your mind. So which way is it? So the Malbim brings both opinions. He brings the Ramban, he brings the Sifrei, the Rambam, he brings the Gemara, the Mishnah, and Makot. He brings all these things to make a sense of it. So, so the fact is, it's interesting. He doesn't actually tell you what the conclusion is. Like, do we want to eat blood or not? Which is really the main question. Do we want to eat blood or not? So I think, my personal opinion here, I think the reason the Malbim doesn't do that, and I think the real answer to this question is, they're different people. Some people are influenced by Avodah Zarah, or influenced by all kinds of magical stuff, and I'm not going to say which group. There's a group on Facebook, or somebody's always posting, you want to go to a rabbi who can heal you of all your ills. Go to this guy. This is a heal for Ein Hara. This is that. All of that is magic and baloney, right? It's not not the Torah way. It's derech hamorim. So palm readers is a little complicated, but like all these Ein Hara, all these tarot cards, all these things, they're even when they have a legitimate source, we're not supposed to completely believe in them so much. Even something like palm reading, which there's a Kabbalistic, there's a Kabbalistic method for it. There are ways to do it, but we're not supposed to like, oh, well, my palm says I'm gonna die when I'm 23. Oh well, that's it. Don't freak out. It doesn't matter what it says. Your palm says one thing, but you're gonna live to 120 anyway, because you're taking care of yourself and whatever. It's ridiculous. You don't have to buy into whatever your palm says. I don't know why I came up with that number. I guess I was thinking the 27 club, but anyway, it's another odd number. See. Perfect. That's how you know that's wrong. All right. So I don't know what your palm says. I never read your palm. And not that I could. I'm not going to publicly say that I can. All right. So so that's the idea. Some people want to eat blood, and those people have to work really hard not to do it, and they're going to get huge reward. Some people have no interest, like me. I have no interest in eating blood. I don't care how much strength it gives me. I don't care if I have the ability to fly afterwards. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to eat blood. And so the reward I get for that, if I get such a huge reward for that mitzvah, imagine the reward I get for mitzvot from avirot that I want to do and I stay away from. That's the goal of the Mishnah. Question.
I'm just thinking like the idea with meat and being like medium rare and well done. Very rare,
Okay.
People like that taste of,
yes. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's kosher, right? Yeah. Right. So yes, so
like that. I don't even like that taste.
Okay. Right. All right. So yeah, and there's different meats that are supposed to. The ideal way of eating them is in some sort of close to raw stage. So some people don't have any interest in that at all, and some people do. So those people who like that irony taste, yeah, put some extra iron in your coffee or whatever. So, no, so those people have to work harder than you. All right, so that's that. Um, okay, let's so that was quite a bit of time as I predicted on the first of our four questions. So we're about quarter of the way through. So this is like perfect. All right, so all right, time wise. Baruch Hashem. All right, we're gonna skip to Devarim Yud Daled Aleph, 14:1. So this is actually today's Aliyah, the fourth Aliyah, and it's the beginning of the laws of kosher, the laws of kashrut, and it starts off this beautiful, beautiful phrase: "Bani matem laHashem Elokechem." You are children of Hashem, your God. And then it gives us a mitzvah, which is, I would say, perhaps a little bit controversial nowadays. It's in the news and such, but we're going to talk about it through the Torah's lens, so I don't see why that should be controversial. Lo titgodedu v'lo tasimu karcha bein einechem lamet. Don't cut yourself, and don't shave the front of your head because of the dead. Okay? So there used to be some sort of perhaps ritual, according to the Ramban. There's some sort of avodah zarah ritual of what people used to do when somebody died. They basically hurt themselves. There are still cultures that do something like that. I remember seeing a movie about Australian, what are they called? The Aborigines in Australia. I think it was called Rabbit Proof Fence. Good movie. But when something sad happened to the family, like the mother would like take like a board and hit herself on the head with it. So, like, yeah, so, like self flagellation, self pain, self suffering, causing yourself to suffer, causing yourself to hurt is something that other cultures do. And by the way, I'm not looking down on those cultures because it happens to be we used to have similar things too. There used to be, and we read about this last year in the Pele Yoetz, there used to be all kinds of different things you could do to like help yourself get rid of sin, to do teshuva, roll around in the snow if it's cold, maybe roll around in hot sand if it's hot. I don't know. There's all kinds of things you could do in order to like punish yourself. The Pele Yoetz says not to do that. Rav Moshe Feinstein says clearly, do not do these things anymore. But they used to be done. People used to whip each other. There used to be a custom like Erev Yom Kippur for like yeshiva bachurim to like whip each other, you know, with like not real whips, but I don't know what they use. But it was painful, I guess. But either way, we don't do that kind of thing anymore, I hope. And because it doesn't really have the desired effect anymore. It's we're not the same people as we used to be. Our physical natures have changed. We've become weaker, and so it doesn't really do. In fact, there's even people, myself included, who say not to fast whenever you don't have to, and don't make up fast for yourself unless health reasons is one thing, but not for tshuva reasons. There's no reason to fast. It doesn't really do the trick anymore. I don't know if you noticed, but most people who fast, even on days we have to fast, the fasting isn't supposed to be the main thing, and it turns out to be the main thing. So what everybody complains about, oh, let me go take a nap because my head hurts because I'm fasting. So what are you doing? You're wasting you lost your half a day of tshuva. You've lost because you're resting. Okay, so I mean we have to because that's our constitution. That's the way our bodies are made up nowadays. But really, the ideal is to think about our deeds and think about make plans to how to fix how we act, which is not what you're doing when you're napping, unless that's what you're dreaming about. But anyway, so why is it? What's going on? Why is there? What is the deeper reason behind not cutting yourself or hurting yourself when a loved one passed away? So I've got two answers for you, one from Sforno, one from Rav Hirsch, but both are pretty much related. I have a feeling Rav Hirsch probably read the Sforno before he wrote his. Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be the first time. He has quoted him before. This is Sforno. This is Sforno. This guy. Oh, don't fall. Don't fall, Sforno. I got you. I got you. Homies. All right. She'ein rui. So he says, why don't we do that? She'ein rui lirot tachlit daga v'hatzar al hakarov hamed. It's not fitting to show more love for the relative who died. Kishnishar krov, against another relative, against another loved one, nichbad mimenu, who's more respected. Hamalo takavatola fichach atem banim laHashem. And that's why it started out with the phrase, you are sons of, your children of Hashem. You have a relative who's still here and alive. Who's that? Hashem. You have a relative, you have a loved one who loves you more than any of your relatives, and whom we, in the ideal state, this is difficult, but it happens to say this in Orchot Tzadikim, that one of the concepts of love that we have, the Orchot Tzadikim is divided by concepts. Each chapter is a different idea, and it really talks about the positives and the negatives of all of these things. One of the chapters is called Ahava, love. So it says, why do we have this? Why do we have this feeling called love? And it's ideally all the love that we have in this world, we're supposed to reapply. We're supposed to learn from them how to love Hashem. We have a mitzvah, v'ahavta Hashem elokecha, last week's parsha, 2 parshas ago. Right? So we have a mitzvah to love Hashem. And how are you supposed to love Him? The way you love somebody you love. Right? If you're walking around with your children, and some stranger comes by and like pushes him, what are you going to do? You're going to react. You might be upset, right? So the same way you should be upset if somebody comes by and says something, or you see somebody say something mean about Hashem. Obviously, nobody can push Hashem, and Hashem doesn't get hurt, but you're supposed to stick up for him, right? Like you do for the people you love. You have somebody you love. You have a love relationship in this world. And when your relative died, that didn't mean you lost all your loved ones. Oh, I have nobody left. I have no reason to. I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't mention it, but I was at a funeral once where the widow kept saying over and over again, "I have no reason to live. I have no reason to live." It was very sad, very emotional. But I tried to explain to her, you do have a reason to live. You have. Besides your children, you also have yourself to live for. Like the person you lost doesn't want you to act this way. Doesn't want you to feel like, nobody wants to be the end all of somebody else's life, right? I'm gone, so I want everybody else to suffer. No, we don't want that, right? So the same thing here. When somebody leaves us, somebody passes away, we're not. Hashem doesn't want us to be like, oh, I'm all lost. I have no reason to live. We do have a reason to live. We have at least if nothing else, we still have a relationship with Hashem, which is great. Bani Matem, you are children of Hashem. So that's why that pasuk starts with Bani Matem to emphasize that. So then Rav Hirsch says. So he says that these mitzvot are intended to preserve an individual's sense of self-worth, which stems from his belonging directly to God. Doesn't that sound very similar to Sforno? Right? You have a worth. It's not like everything's gone. You still have something. This sense of self-worth must be maintained in relation to any person, no matter how much he is loved and revered. No human being should have such a strong hold on us that we identify with him to the point of self-nullification, so that when he departs this world, we feel compelled to throw ourselves away after him like a vessel that has no value. Such an unjustifiable loss of self-worth would be implied by the infliction of a permanent wound or bald spot. Right? That's what we're talking about. So very similar idea. let me see. There was something else I wanted to point out. Um, Basically, the idea is nobody's supposed to be more important to us than Hashem. We are important because Hashem loves us, and we shouldn't. We're not useless just because we lost something or somebody important in our lives. Okay, it's about halfway through the class. Time for the second half of the class. Perfect. Okay, so we have 2 or so comments on this next question. The next question is, what do the signs of non-kosher animals represent? So the pasuk that I brought is one of the examples. Zot habehema shetochelu. These are the animals that you can eat. Shor, sek, kasavim, v'sev, izim. You can eat the ox, the sheep, the goat. Right. So and the Mishnah Torah. And then, I didn't quote the entire source, but almost the rest of the chapters are different signs of animals that are kosher, not kosher, et cetera, et cetera. So the Rambam in Mishnah Torah says something that's unique. Unique because this is not the halacha. This is not the halacha. The Ravad and the Ramban say we don't have to hold like this, and this is not brought down in Shulchan Aruch as a mitzvah. But one of the 613 mitzvot, according to the Rambam, remember, there are different lists of what the 613 mitzvot are. According to the Rambam, one of the 613 mitzvot is this one. It's also in the first chapter of Hilchot Ma'acholot Asurot, the source that I brought down here. Interestingly enough, Sefaria has a translation of this, but in German. So not going to do much good, although I learned some interesting words in German now. What's one of them? Damit. Kind of looks like a bad word in English, but damit means to distinguish, apparently, in German. Anyway, so I learned that. So yeah, you learn some German when you try to learn some Torah. All right. So not all of their words are weird. Fish, wild, like wild, right? Anyway. So those ones I recognize. All right, mitzvot aseh. There is a mitzvah. Like I said, he counts this as one of his 613 mitzvot. Leida hasimanim shemavdilin behem ben behema v'chaya v'of v'dagim v'chagavim shemutar la'achlan ben she'en mutar la'achlan. There is a mitzvah for every single Jew to know the signs of a kosher animal versus a non-kosher animal. A kosher bird versus a non-kosher bird. Kosher fish versus a non-kosher fish. It's a mitzvah according to the Rambam, which means, besides when you go to the store and you see, so here's where it's relevant, right? You go to the store and you want to buy a kosher fish. Which fish are kosher? They have to have fins and scales, right? Happens to be all the fish that have fins, all the fish that have scales have fins too. Why fins have to be mentioned at all is the Gemara talks about Yagdil Torah v'yadir, so that there's more Torah to teach and learn, and et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to get into that now. That's a good discussion for another time. I think this was my Shabbat drasha last year. Anyway, back to this though. But the idea, so you go to the store and you don't have the entire fish. All you have is the fish and some skin. You don't see any fins. Can you buy the fish? Does it have scales? Good question. So yes, you see scales. Can you buy the fish? Usually yes, especially if it's labeled and you know what kind of a fish it is. Usually, especially nowadays, when they label a fish, they would be afraid to label the wrong fish because there's allergies. Somebody could die, right, etc. You want to make sure it's all, it's exactly what it says. Now, happens to be not all scales are kosher. Did you know that? Did you know that a shark has scales? Shark has scales. It's not a kosher fish. Why isn't it kosher? Because those scales cause bleeding when you pull them out. You can't pull them out easily. You have to be able to easily pull them out without hurting the fish. And as you know, if you've ever tried, I know you guys don't like fish too much, but if you've ever tried to descale a fish, to take off its skin, it's very easy to take off the scales. Like you could just do it with like the back of a butter knife. It's that easy. They're not on very well at all. If you wanted to take out a shark's scales, you would have to use like pliers and like pull them out, right? So that's the difference. So that's one of the differences between kosher fish and non-kosher fish. Do you know the difference between a kosher bird and non-kosher bird? Do you know the signs of a kosher bird? So there's a list. There's a list of 4. So, there's thousands and thousands of birds. Do we only eat 4 birds? How about this? How about you ready for a trick question? Is duck kosher? They serve duck in kosher Chinese restaurants, so it must be kosher, right? But not all ducks are the same. Yes, we had a whole class on turkey with the Thanksgiving class a few months ago. Yes, turkey is also an interesting question. How is turkey kosher? But ducks there are different kinds of ducks, and depending on how their feet look, feet. The feet of the duck matters, as we're about to see in this video I'm about to share. I had the tremendous. I'll bring the screen over to you in just a moment. Or let me see if I can. I have a mess here. I apologize. So I had the great, tremendous zchut 7 years ago to be in the 2014. Was that 7 years ago? Yeah. All right. I think so. To be part of to have a 3-week internship at the OU. And I heard Rabbi Chaim Loki live, and he brought birds and he made a whole demonstration. So I tried to find the video of it. I have a DVD of it, but for some reason my DVD didn't work on my computer. So I had to find it on YouTube. I found a 11-minute video. I'm not going to show the whole thing. Just want to show you the part that has to do with the signs, and there we go. So I'm gonna, I think so. Never been there. Okay, so what are the 4? So the Mishnah, so he starts off by telling us that the Mishnah in Chulin tells us that there's 4 signs of what to look for in a kosher bird. And let me make sure the volume's up. It is, and let's do it.
The Mishnah has 4 signs through which the kosher and non-kosher birds can be differentiated. The first sign of the Mishnah is that the bird must be an eino dores. Kosher birds must be birds which do not tear at other birds. The second sign of the Mishnah is that the bird has a zefek, a crop, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. The third sign is a kurkuba niklaf biyad, a gizzard which can be peeled with the hand. And the final sign of the Mishnah is that the bird has an etzba yetera, an extra toe. As we noted earlier, the turtle dove, is the quintessential kosher bird. If you take a look at the turtle dove, you'll notice that, first of all, I'm holding the turtle dove in my hand. The turtle dove is not hurting me, and if you've ever seen anybody who's holding an eagle in their hand, or an owl, they have to wear thick leather gloves, because the owl and the eagle, even if they're trained, will accidentally hurt the person who's handling them. The turtle dove, if you take a look at its face, you'll notice that it has a beak which is very fine. This bird cannot peck or attack other birds with its beak, and it also cannot use its beak to tear meat. If you take a look at the feet of the turtle dove, you'll notice that the feet are very fine. The bird cannot scratch with its feet, nor can it use its feet to tear or attack other birds. This bird, by just observing it, we can see that it is clearly not a dores. It is not a bird which attacks other species. If we were to take a look at the anatomy of this bird, the food enters through the mouth and it travels down the esophagus. What you can see in the picture in front of you now is that at the base of the esophagus there is a crop, a zefek, it looks like a small latex pouch at the base of the esophagus. The food first passes to the crop, to the zephek. It's collected there, and then it is slowly passed from the zephek, from the crop, further down the digestive tract to get to the gizzard, the kurkabun of the bird. Inside the kurkabun of the bird swallows not only food, but also stones. Unlike people that have teeth, birds do not have teeth, and what the bird does with its gizzard is it uses stones to grind down the food which it's eating. If you look at the picture in front of you of the kurkabun, you'll notice that the kurkabun has been cut open. In this picture, you see that the membrane of the kurkabun was peeled off. This is called kurkabun niklaf, and this particular kurkabun, it was niklaf biyad. It was peeled off with the hand, which means that a person holds the kurkabun in their hand, they can rub it, and the membrane will separate and will be peelable. Finally, if you look at the foot of the turtle dove, you'll notice that it has 3 toes in front, and one toe, this toe, the middle toe, is a little bit longer than the other toes. And according to many Rishonim, that is the identification of an etzba yetera, an extra toe, having one toe which is longer than the other toes. This is a chicken. As you know, a chicken is a kosher bird. If you take a look at the face of the chicken, you'll notice that its beak is not as fine as that of the turtle dove. This chicken has a very thick beak, not necessarily as powerful as a hawk or an eagle, but it has a beak which is powerful, and if you take a look at its feet, you'll notice that its feet are also powerful. As you know, there are people who fight chickens. No, not people who fight chickens. There are chickens. I'm sorry about that. There are chickens who fight, which can be instigated to fight other chickens. They will fight each other to the death and kill each other with their feet. Yet, we know that the chicken is not a predator because we know it's a kosher species. Yet, if we were to encounter the chicken for the first time, we would be concerned that perhaps this chicken is a predator. If we were to take a look inside the chicken, you would see that it does have a zephek, it does have a crop very similar to that of a turtle dove, and its gizzard, its kurkabun, is niklaf biyad, can be peeled with the hand. If you take a look at its foot, you'll notice that it has one toe, which is longer than the other toes, a etzba yetera similar to that found in the turtle dove. It also has a toe right over here, which is very small, and when it stands, doesn't really serve a purpose. And some Rishonim feel that this toe over here is the etzba yetera. And there's a final view among the Rishonim that an etzba yetera is the spur, right over here, an outgrowth, which is sort of like a nail, which the chicken uses to fight other chickens. So this chicken has the 3 physical signs of a kosher bird, and we know it certainly is not a dores. It is eino dores because it is kosher. The Rishonim are of the opinion that there are no predators which are kosher. All birds of prey are not kosher. So we only know that it's eino dores because it's kosher. Yet if we were to look at the chicken for the first time, a chicken which has a beak, which has power, which has feet, which can be used to fight and even kill other birds, we might be concerned that perhaps the chicken is in fact a dores. Okay. Now I'm going to put the chicken in this cage, and to reward it for cooperating with us and to keep it happy, I'm going to feed it a chicken. And you'll notice that the chicken is going to eat. If it calms down, it's going to eat the chicken.
Okay, that was about all I wanted to show you guys. There's plenty more to learn about that, but Why are you confused? What am I doing? Stop share. Okay, so all right, so I hope you all got that. I don't know how that worked out on Zoom. We'll have to see later. But yeah. So what are you confused about? Do you have a question about one of the? It looks violent, right? But it can be trained to be. But it's and they do fight, but they don't fight for food. They're not. What's Doris doesn't just mean that they're mean, that they're not nice animals. We're not saying that doves are nice. I think they're pretty. I don't know if you've ever seen pigeons in Central Park, but they're not all nice, right? Right. But the chicken doesn't have to be a nice animal. The point is, it doesn't attack animals to eat them. It'll eat them. It'll eat anything, as you can see, but that's not how it gets its food primarily. That's what makes it a dores, is when it attacks and tears apart other animals, because that's how they eat. That's like an eagle, right? That's you know. All right. So that's those are some of the signs of a and again, according to the Rambam, there is indeed a mitzvah to know this. One of the 613 mitzvot, to know this. So what you just learned about the 4 signs of a kosher bird, you can go outside and look at a bird and say, that's not a kosher bird because of this or that. Obviously, you need to cut it open to see if it has a gizzard, or you have to try to rub off. Yeah, I don't expect you to be doing that. So, so but those are some of the signs of a kosher bird. And now you know that, and now you fulfilled a mitzvah d'oraita from the Torah according to the Rambam. So yasher koach. Okay, so is there any deeper significance to these symbols, to these examples, for example, that are brought in the Torah? So Rabbeinu Bachaya, who we rarely, unfortunately, really quote him in this class, but we should. He has an amazing pirush on the Torah. He doesn't need my haskama, but he says a very interesting thing, and I wanted to share with you. Let's see if I have it easily accessible here. Yeah. So Rabbeinu Bachaya notes that there are 4 examples of non-kosher animals that are brought in actually his commentary on Parshat Shmini back in Vayikra. So in Vayikra 11:4, he mentions. Oh, it's a different book. Okay, he mentions that there are 4 particular animals that are mentioned that are not kosher. Let's see if I can find them quickly. It's a long piece. Okay, here we go. He says, here we are. He quotes our pasuk, Katuv, at a gamal, right? That's the camel. At our navet, the rabbit, I guess. That's hashafan. How do you translate shafans? I think different translations, but it's like a mole rat or something like that. The different opinions. Anyway, kimala geira hema, because they all chew. They don't chew their cud. No, they chew their cud but don't have split hooves. Vehiskir haravi, and then a pasuk we play atzmo, and then it mentions a 4th species of animal in a separate pasuk. And what's that? Hu akatuv at a chazir, kimafris parsa hu v'lo geira. Because he does not chew his cud, but he does have the split hooves. Those are the symbols of a kosher animal: the split hooves and chewing cud. So those 4 animals are mentioned specifically, and then we learn out from those animals other animals as well, etc., etc. So why those 4, and why is the 4th one in a separate pasuk? Hayazel romes ki hashalosh galiot afal pishu zmanehem chalukim hayu ki ulahem mechubrim lefi zmanam muat v'kata. The three animals that are mentioned together in one pasuk indicates that out of the four galiot, the four kingdoms that the Jewish people are going to live under, three of them are going to be short and easy. Not necessarily easy, but three of them are going to be short-lived. Right? That's Babylonia, the Babylonian exile. So what do they call it in English? The Madai, Media, right? Persia. That's the Esther story, and then finally the Greek exile. Those three were rather short. I mean, 100 years, several hundred years. The fourth exile, which is represented by the Chazir, the pig, it's a separate parsha. It has a separate category all on its own. Why? Because it's so long, so much longer than any of the other ones. It's already 2,000 years and counting, right? That the Romans that we've been living under the Roman exile more or less. But my point here is the reason I bring this up is because there's deeper significance in the laws of kashrut. It's not just you can't eat it. We're Jewish, so we don't eat non-kosher. That's not the entire attitude that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to also recognize that these things symbolize things. There's a lot of symbolism going on. I have more. He brings several different things that these represent in his comment, and that's all in the source. I think I might have sent you the wrong source link though in the email, but it's okay. It's okay. You can find it on your own if you want to. It's 0504, the fourth parsha in the fifth book. Okay, now Devarim 16:8. So we're skipping all the way to the end of the parsha, where it talks about the holidays. And by the way, this is the reading for the holidays. We read these parsha, especially Asher Tasa. We read on the day we say on the day that we say what should we call it, the Yizkor, right? All right. So one of the psukim there tells us. We got 10 minutes. I got this. This is easy. All right. One of the Gemara, before we get to the Gemara, the pasuk says, "Sheshit yamim tochal matzot." You should eat matzot for 6 days. And the seventh day is going to be a Yom Tov, and it's an atzeret. It's a meeting. That's what that literally translates. A gathering, la Hashem elokecha, for Hashem your God. Lo taseh malacha, don't do any work. Now we know that Sefer Devarim, a lot of Sefer Devarim anyway, has a repetition more or less of something that's told to us previously in the Torah. So this idea of keeping 7 days of Pesach is also earlier in the Torah. To be specific, it's in Bamidbar 29:35, where there's only one difference in this entire pasuk. Over there, it's an atzeret, not for Hashem. It's an atzeret. It's a meeting. It's a gathering place for you. And then it says, don't do any work, because it's the seventh day of Pesach is a Yom Tov, not Chol HaMoed. So which is it, Lachem or Lashem? I'm not the first to ask this question, Baruch Hashem. The Gemara asks this question. The Gemara actually in two places. It's in Pesachim 68b and in Beitz 15. I forget if it's A or B. But anyway.
There's like 4 flies just attacked.
Oh boy.
No, like one of them. I'm like, okay, fine.
All right.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry.
All right, we're being attacked. All right. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Shnehem Mikra Echad Darshu. We can explain both of them with one verse. Katuv Echad Omer. One says Atzeret LaHashem Elokecha. One says it's a meeting for Hashem your God. But Katuv Echad in another verse. That's this verse in Bamidbar. Atzeret Lachem. That this gathering should be for you. Rabbi Eliezer Savar O kulu Hashem, o kulu lachem. Either it has to be all for you or all for Hashem. Make up your mind. Pasuk. Torah, what do you want from us? Rabbi Yeshua Savas, Rabbi Yeshua says this is what you do. Chelkehu, take these two verses and split them. Chetzio Lashem, Chetzio Lachem. Half for Hashem and half for you. So split them in half. One for Hashem, one for you. In other words, what half the day should be for Hashem, half the day should be for you. In other words, what does it mean for the day to be for Hashem? Davening, learning, it's a really, really long service. And then after the service, you skip your food. Don't worry about yourself or your belly or how tired you are. Don't nap, don't eat, and just meditate about Hashem and how much you love him, etc. So that's what you should do on Yom Tov if the day is completely for Hashem. That's for Hashem. If it's a day for yourself only and not for Hashem, so forget about the davening and learning, unless you like to learn for fun. Learn even stuff, only the stuff you want to learn. Ignore the stuff that's too hard, right? So you do that, and you eat as much as you want, and then you eat some more, and you sleep until you wake up, and then you sleep some more, right? You make a day, go sleep in a hammock with a beer. Okay, it's Pesach, so Pesach beer, if there's such a thing. I have an idea. All right. Anyway, so that's how it is. That's how you would do it if it was all for God or all for you. But by splitting it in half, what you're doing is you're saying half the day I'm going to spend in ritual, in davening, in meditating, in thinking about Hashem, and creating a closer relationship with him. And the other half of the day, I'll play with my kids. I'll go for walks. I'll enjoy the day. I'll sleep. I'll eat. So half and half, 12 hours each, or 12 and a half hours each. That's a 25-hour day usually. So, right. So, half an hour earlier or before, half an hour later. All right. So the Vilna Gaon says, but that's, by the way, the halacha. Happens to be that's the halacha. That's not the Vilna Gaon yet. Mostly, yeah. Mostly. Except for one holiday that's supposed to be Kulu Hashem. Kulu Lachem. No. Kulu Lachem. Not at all for Hashem. You'd be surprised which one it is. It's not Sukkot. It's Shavuos. Yeah, Shavuot is which is like there are a lot of drushes about this, but it's a little bit weird because it's the day we got the Torah, so you think, yeah, this is the day I have to really be all in for Hashem, and really the point of life is for us to enjoy life. So that's why the Torah was given to us. Torah is cherus, not charus. I mean, it's freedom. It liberates us to really enjoy life. So that's why that's why it's for us. All right, but that doesn't mean we don't go to shul or learn anything. Don't get me wrong. Next Shavuos, I come to shul and I'm the only one here. Hey, you said it was for us. We're at the beach. Anyway, God forbid. Okay. Says the Vilna Gaon, you could learn from the words in this verse, this lesson of Rabbi Yeshua in the Gemara. How? So he quotes the pasuk. He quotes the Gemara, Psachim. Okay. It's 15b. Vilna Gaon tells me it's Daf Tetvav Amud Bet. Okay, good. So that's 15b. I should fix that on my notes. Maybe I'll do that now. Sorry, accuracy is important. Okay. All right. So he quotes the verse, and then he says. He says the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, the chelkehu chatzir, you cut it in half, l'Hashem chatzir lachem, and half for yourself, ayin sham. Hine, behold, halashon chelkehu l'chora einu muvan. It's not the right word. Split it. What do you mean split it? Split what? We don't do that. Before, and he explains the yesh lomar dezehu. Rabbi Yeshua, the efshar or lomar sheya kula l'Hashem harei k'tiv lachem. You can't say it's all for Hashem because it says lachem, for you. You can't say it's all for you because it says in another pasuk, right? In our pasuk that it's for Hashem. So that's why he says to cut it, to cut half and give half to Hashem, give half to yourself. Rotzal Omar. Chetzi hateva l'Hashem, v'chetzi hateva de lachem. Half of the word for Hashem and half of the word lachem. Because chetzi hateva l'Hashem, begematria chavchet. Half of the, if you take the word Lashem, that's Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey and a Lamed, you add it all up, the gematria is 56, 30 plus 26. Half of 56 is, half of 56 is 28. 28. Chavchet. Right? The gematria is Chavchet. Lachem, right, is Lamed Chaf and Lamed Chaf and Mem, right, which is 90. 30 plus 20 plus 40, right, is 90. Easy. Half of 90 is 45. Add 28 plus 45. Correct. 73. 73. All right. So 28 plus 45 is 73. And the gematria of 73 is exactly the gematria of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is exactly 73. Right? 10 plus 6 plus 40 plus, which is Yom. And 9 plus 6 plus 2, which is Tov. 56 plus 17, 73. Exactly. So the Gemara is saying, take half. Take half of Hashem, take half of Lachem, and that's going to give you what you need. Put it together, you'll have a Yom Tov. That's what Yom Tov is supposed to be. Chetzi Lashem, Chetzi Lahem. That's exactly what Rabbi Yeshua said in the Gemara, and that's exactly, it works out perfectly mathematically, and that's the Vilna Gaon. So although we had only 4 questions to deal with today, we traveled through the entire parsha. We learned about blood, and we learned about the signs of a kosher, not kosher animals. We learned about why people shouldn't cut themselves, and we concluded with reminding ourselves that it's important to have a Yom Tov, to have a good day, to have a Yom Tov by giving half to Hashem, half for ourselves. The world was given to us to enjoy properly according to the Torah of Hashem. And if we do that, we'll all have a beautiful Yom Tov and a beautiful week. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording and